So the next thing that I wanted to cover was DNA spaces, because I think there's some confusion about how that all fits into the to that world as well. And a lot of what I hear from the field is there's a lot of customers and partners that are like, well, how does DNA spaces fit with DNA Center and blah blah blah? They are affiliated, but really what DNA spaces is, it's a way for all of the data streams for location to be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Consolidated.
Consolidated. Thank you. That is exactly the word that I wanted to use.
You get a sticker, Daren. You get a sticker.
Yeah, you win.
That's my contribution for today.
Now, so what we're looking at is a dashboard for DNA spaces that does not have anything configured on it. But what I wanted to do was show you guys where this data is kind of going. And so traditionally, or I shouldn't say traditionally, the previous instance of Cisco's consolidation of location data was something called CMX. CMX was a service that was run mainly on-premise, and it was something that was deployed by organizations on servers. It's software that collected all that location data. And you had to go through this process of hooking up your wireless LAN controller to CMX and importing your maps and doing all of these machinations to make this work. Now, Cisco purchased a company last year called July Systems, and this is kind of the base platform of July Systems that takes in these data streams and consolidates them into something that is a lot more manageable. So I'm going to go back to my example about the Meraki customer that had 1,000 different sites. We can see this happening over and over and over again with a lot of organizations that are deploying these, WAN services across several campuses and several branches, having this challenge of consolidating their data streams. And so for at least location services, what we can do, but for both Meraki and traditional Cisco wireless, so if a organization is deploying a hybrid wireless infrastructure, they can collect all of that data into DNA spaces, which is really the big kind of, for lack of better words, selling point of this platform. Right. Now, the interesting thing about this particular platform is there's two kind of ways that this organization, that the DNA Spaces business unit, is approaching interactivity with those data streams. So you can go through the GUI and interact with all of these things through behavior metrics, location analytics, if you're deploying captive portals, Bluetooth low energy tracking, which says in beta here. But because again, we're DevNet and we like to tell the developer story, there's two ways that we can interact with them. And the first one I'm showing you, and I think this is some crowd favorites here, which is a listing of all of the endpoints that are available to us for the DNA Spaces Location Cloud API. So all of that data is being collected from all of those customers, and as a person that can log into that particular instance of DNA Spaces, I can then make API calls for the specific set of data that I have access to. So a quick look at the authorization. They use what's called an API key, and then that allows me to run these API calls to pull things like the map hierarchy down, pull in map images so that we can overlay them in our mapping applications. Most importantly, though, things like client count, the number of clients, and we can do these things over periods of time as well. Let's see here. What floors clients are at, the access points in their deployment, client histories. So we can start to build out all of these either logging applications that allow us to make informed decisions about space management. One of the big things is being able to determine whether or not people are using the network in a specific space, or being able to determine traffic flow. And we can tie into client history for those things. So I'm going to do a quick demo of this API. I have a shared API key tied to it, and I'm going to open another crowd favorite Postman.
There it wouldn't
be a DevNet session if we didn't do Postman.
Absolutely.
So usually, and I've talked about creating mapping applications before, but usually what you need to do is identify how to get the map first. And so I was kind of playing with these APIs earlier, and I noticed that there's that map hierarchy API. I have everything kind of set up. I have my URL, and in my authorization or in my headers, I'm sending the API key that I need to authorize my API call. And I get back the maps, the map hierarchy of this particular site that we're talking about. So this one has a Cisco campus at campus level. They have a building named Store. Not super interesting as far as building names are concerned. And then this is really getting tight over here. And then let's see here. We should have a floor at some point. Oh, there we go. Floor 1. So we have Cisco campus, Store, floor 1. And then with that has our image, that domain dot something 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 dot png. It gives us the pixel size and height with pixel size, width, and height, so that when we actually bring it up in our application, we can adjust the sizes based on what screen we're looking at. So we can make it aware, context aware for its service. The other thing that it has are should have the coordinates here. Yeah, so the coordinates of the 4 corners of the image as well. And that helps us to then place devices in that specific space. So this particular image, if we're getting reports back for this map, we should never see a device outside of X171 or outside of Y200. So this tells me the bounds within those, within that specific space that those clients should be in, so that when I get the report for the clients, I can put that blue dot in that right space. So that's the kind of pertinent information that we're going to get back from the map API. And then to pull the actual image down, it's a simple API call to the images one, and that'll pull our image down. And we can then load that up into our application, be it mobile or web or whatever. And then we can start to do things like make a call for clients. There were 217 before, but now we're to 174. So I think this might actually be a live space. And then if I want to see actual information about those clients, so that was client/client/count, and now we're at /clients. So if I go ahead and click on that, it'll give me information about the client, similar to what we saw with that Meraki simulator. But I think these are live clients. So I'm not 100% sure. I was told to just use this as the demo space and the testing space. So we'll just run with that. But it gives us all the pertinent information to where to place that client in our map, or to run historical information about where things are located and things like that. So we have our campus ID, and that ties to the ID that was in our mapping hierarchy. Same thing for the building and the floor. It actually gives us a string representation of our hierarchy as well. And if we look at the coordinates of this particular one, it sits within our prescribed space here. So it's not outside of the XY coordinates. Thank goodness that I wasn't shown to be a liar. And it tells us the confidence factor. I know that this is, I apologize for this. I know that this is used to calculate that circle that's usually drawn around a blue dot. But 248 seems high for what I thought that value is. So we could be either looking at simulated data, or the confidence factor is a little off. I have to look up what that is used for, or how that is calculated currently. But it gives us very similar information to what we saw with Meraki, but it's coming from the Cisco, the unified wireless infrastructure through DNA spaces. Now, the thing you may notice. Oh, go ahead. Was there a question?
Yeah, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you this question that I perceive that a disgruntled wireless engineer would ask you, right? So I saw your ability to pull down the map hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
Is there a reverse of that? Let's say I'm a disgruntled wireless engineer, and one of the things I would love to automate, right? Everybody goes through that painstaking process of uploading maps right? And actually coordinates and what have you. So you have detailed maps, you know, on your monitoring for your monitoring. Is there a way to upload via scripts that same information to be able to outline and set your mapping and your floor plans and so forth, or is that something that you haven't done yet?
So as far as I can tell, the only API available to, I have not done it, but as far as I can tell, the only post that we have available to us is the ability to upload the image.
Oh, okay.
Which leads me to wonder if there is an API. It doesn't look like there is an API yet. But I agree with you. That would be a nice one to do that. Yeah, so I don't see any API exposed currently that allows us to actually create the hierarchy.
Okay. What is that? That's just a post, right? So you can upload the map, right, via script.
You can upload the map via script, but you can't create the hierarchy to upload the map to.
Right. Okay.
So I think this is a good spot, because this, you know, what this illustrates is through either the development or the sandbox or whatever it is on the particular platform that you're working on, right? So this is in the documentation from Meraki. These APIs and how to get the information from a get or a put to make the instantiate the changes or get the information that you're looking to get becomes relatively easy. And through that, through the documentation, through a tool like Postman or another, you know, API tool, you can quickly start to build applications or quick scripts to do repetitive, mundane things. And yes, you know, that's the part that, you know, we need to demystify and take away the fear of, is that, you know, everybody does something every day. And if you can automate that and run a script and cron it and just get it done, it's going to free you up to do 5 other things that you don't do because you're doing something else. You know, from a, and again, that just kind of just drives the same point home that we as a group have been trying to drive, and that's crawl, walk, run, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know,
excellent point, Rick. Yep.
Well, we at DevNet call it walk, run, fly. We give you at
least. You see, you don't bother with the crawl. You just go straight to walking.
Okay, I like that.
Well, I mean,
walk, run, fly.
Perfect. We're talking about network engineers and software developers and hardware developers that have you know, a basis of knowledge that calling it crawl is not the right doing it justice. So we shifted it, walk, run, fly.
And that's you know, fair. I think that's fair. And you know, the other thing is you know, for the most part, you don't need to understand how to build in all the error correcting and checking and testing to do a lot of this stuff that, you know, most developers would. However, you know, most companies now have development teams, and, you know, at least where I work, we do walk hand in hand with them. And, you know, if I need something done, you know, I can give them the framework from what I can, you know, piece together in Python or XML and just hand it over to them and say, hey, shape this up and put a web front end on it, build it around, and, you know, give it to me as an application. And they'll do that, and it's boom, it's quick for them.
It's so basically what it boils down to is, what can you get out of the API, and how do you use that to do the thing that you're trying to achieve, isn't it? And like you say, Rick, that when you see it in front of you, documented in that way or accessible, and you're able to understand, right, okay, this API call gives me this information or allows me to change that thing. You can build it into a workflow, and once you've got that kind of workflow understood, the logic behind it, then it's a case of coding, and then that's the point where you can hand it off to someone else to do if you're not that confident. But the point is that unless you go through that process and understand what it is that you're trying to put together, that process you're trying to put together, you're not going to get anywhere. If you've got that API information available, you can see how that process wants to be shaped.
I think to make it easier for people that's listening, right? The APIs are going to let you know what you need to be able to, what capabilities you have, right? So before you even think about the scripting and looking at the large amount of scripts or how to even get there, right? You want to look at what can be obtained by scripting, and that's what these maps actually show you. That's what these APIs actually show you, what you can actually, the possibilities, right? And then you sit back and the tools, which would be Postman or Python or what have you, right? That's when you start working to create the logic based on the capabilities, which is the API. So, I mean,
the URI is right here. It's,
right.
You just cut and paste and put it in your browser.
That was the exact, Derek asking that question was the exact process that someone either in their head or in their team should go through and saying, well, man, it seems weird that I would go through the process. And actually, I do think it's a little bit weird that I can't set up the map hierarchy through a post call in the API. But that's a logical thought process of, if I'm setting up all of these sites and all of these locations, should I be able to do that through the API? And if I can't, why not? Should I go to the product team and say, hey, let's add in that API? But that is the exact mindset that we at DevNet are trying to get people into. Where are the points that we can make our lives easier, to make the things that we do in a tedious and redundant manner automated in a way that it saves us time and allows us to innovate or solve other bigger problems, etc. And so you guys nailed it. I mentioned before there were two ways to interact with the data. So there is these are all REST APIs, so everything is on demand. It's not a data stream like we saw with the Meraki location scanning API. There is something that DNA Spaces is putting out there called the Firehose API. It's kind of in an alpha cum beta situation right now that they're doing with partners. But that is their data stream, and it's kind of they call it the Firehose API. It is a very impressive implementation of a lot of data being sourced, coming into DNA Spaces, and then being sourced out to the requesting partners. So there is not that direct data stream that we saw with location scanning, but there is potentially whether that will be exposed to customers remains to be seen. But there is that opportunity for partners to engage with that Firehose API through the DNA Spaces partner program.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that.